Hi, and welcome to the Growth Advantage podcast. Today, I'll be talking to award-winning entrepreneur and CEO of Game Dev Local, Stuart De Ville. Game Dev Local is a cross-media community supporting the UK games industry through opportunities, education, and outreach. Hi, Stuart, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks.
It's great to have you here, Stuart. And to start, could you please share a bit about your background and what led you to co-found the Game Dev Local? And also for our listeners who might not be familiar, could you tell us a bit about what Game Dev Local is all about and its mission?
Yeah, sure. So I have been what I've been calling a career creative. So I've been a freelance artist for my whole life, and that's taken various forms. And then I keep saying about 10 years ago, but each year I'm sure it should be getting further away. But about 10 years ago, I got into the games industry, and I started off looking at how to break in, and there was lots of advice out there, and one of the main things was to network.
Yeah.
So I started attending regular meetups around game development, found that there was a whole community there, got involved in that community, and from there ended up meeting up with someone who ran a regular meetup, and they asked me to join as a co-organizer. And then from there, we took that little meetup into being two meetups, and then I went to host a games expo. I don't know why all this stuff happened, but I just wanted to support the industry and give back because it was supporting me and giving and helping me loads. Um, and and also I was finding that all of the paths for people were tricky and difficult, and the more that I learned, the more that I realized that like the stuff that I was learning wasn't being widely openly shared.
Right.
Um, you kind of had to have that long entry curve to kind of get yourself to a point where you're like, okay, I understand like the lay of the land and how things work, and you can get yourself into the industry. Because I feel like it's a little bit different to other industries. There's very clear paths into any other industry.
Yeah.
Games, even though now it's kind of got a bit mature, there still isn't a very clear path in. So that's what basically brought me up to creating GDL. And GDL has changed. Game Dev Local has changed quite a bit from the beginning. We were originally called Game Dev London.
Right.
Um, so that's one of the things that changed. We changed that because we were forever having people join who were like, "Oh, I'm not from London. Is that okay?" And our whole thing has always been like, we're open and inclusive and
Yeah.
accessible to anyone and everyone. So fortunately, a change from London to local was quite easy, so the branding didn't have to change too much. We kept GDL. Um, and yeah, we've done a lot of things over the years. We've tried to support the industry in a lot of different ways. We do networking meetups, where we've done workshops, both paid and free. We've done a community education program. We run a podcast, and we run larger scale events. So we do our main one being GDLX, which is our Indie Games Expo. And it's all to support the indie game community, basically.
Amazing. Sounds like you've been it's naturally evolved from one thing to another, and as you're growing and bringing all these different branches in, like you say, that change from being Game Dev London to Game Dev Local has opened up the avenues for a wider participation, I guess. And obviously you're dedicated to supporting the UK games industry through opportunities, education and outreach, like you've just mentioned. How do you envision AI tools being integrated into these core pillars to improve, say, your marketing for indie studios and generating leads for projects and automating sales follow-ups and ultimately leading to measurable revenue growth for them?
I've had an ever-evolving opinion and point of view on the AI tools. When it was first being banded around, it seemed like it was going to be a big thing,
Yeah.
and because it came in initially through like all of the visual side of things, like all of the art side of games,
Right.
there was huge backlash because we are like largely most of us are artists and designers in some way, shape, or form. So I think the difference between what it does and how it's pitched are very different. So it's pitched as this like, you can replace everyone. You don't need a
Yeah.
team. You could just use AI, and that promise is never going to come to fruition, especially with art. So I think that there are ways that companies, studios included, can use AI, use it ethically, use it sensibly. I think the key thing to remember is that none of it actually is artificial intelligence. There is no intelligence. It's an
Yeah,
algorithm. It's a tool. Yeah, it's a really cool, sophisticated one. But by and large, what it tends to do is its output is the median. It's like the middle ground. It's the generic. So when it comes to creating art or doing anything creative, it's just taken designs from everywhere and then it's given you, yeah, like this middle ground. What everyone calls AI slop, I guess, because it's not fine art. It's not got anything to say for itself. It is just plain bland, boring, generic. The kind of stuff where when you create icons for your website, you want them to be, you know, everyone to understand and be generic. You that kind of stuff. I mean, we don't even need it for that because that's out there. You know, you can get that stuff for free. So I think as a creative tool, it's only really useful in places where it can help you to do like the little boring, tedious things. So I think it works better on the business side of things when you're trying to optimize business systems. Certainly not in the creative space. We currently don't use AI for any of our like marketing or internal stuff.
right.
Um, but mostly because we're the GDL's team size fluctuates and it can reduce down quite small. So typically, like I'm always here, but typically, like our team was once like 20 people or so.
Yeah,
We're now down to like a core team of 5 or 6,
right.
and we're all volunteer based. So that tends to change anyway. There are certain times where people want to help us and support loads, and then they run out of time, life gets in the way, or whatever, and they have to leave and go on and do other things. There's no real process where AI can kind of come in and do much for us.
Right.
All of the copy that we need for social media, again, like we don't want generic copy. We want stuff that speaks to our audience, and so to a large extent, like right now, I'm in control of social media again,
Yeah.
and so a lot of my day is taken up with creating social media posts. But I've got my own system for that, and I've still yet to see a way where I could effectively plug in AI to do my job. Yeah.
So you're a great believer in that human element, that human touch, and sort of having that sort of eye on the ball and finger on the pulse, as it were.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to talk to an audience, like, and as we've seen, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I kind of live on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and it's kind of really easy to spot a post that's been created by AI, especially as once you've seen one of them, the same formats and the same styles appear across everyone's posts. I don't look at it and think, oh, that's like of no use or whatever. But it's definitely a note. You can definitely notice it.
You can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to speak to someone a bit more personally, then the thing that you kind of need to get across is your personality. Obviously, that doesn't. It's not the same for like company posts. Like a company should sound like a company. However, you make a company sound like a company, but your personal posts should always sound like you. And if you're the way that you speak, whether it be like as simple as you like to use swear words in your in your post, or you know, there's certain ways that people speak, and then there'll be like little things like little typos that creep in, you know,
Yeah.
that just let you know that that person has spent time and energy on trying to reach you and saying what they want to say and trying to be authentic.
Yes, it takes a lot to replace that human element. You know, it's not like you say, it's noticeable, isn't it? And again, going back to what you said about sort of the artist side of things, you know, every artist quite clearly has their own style, their own approach, and sort of I can see how AI can completely detract from that and not give that sort of sense of individuality that
Mhm.
you get from a human work. So really interesting. Um, how do you grow your community? How do you go about your outreach? What's worked particularly well, and what perhaps approaches haven't worked as well for you over the last sort of year or so?
So we've tended to kind of grow mostly organically by word of mouth and through the support that we provide. So I've never had to do anything like go and find or buy CRMs or like bulk load of other people's data or scrape the web for data. Typically, just our social media and people attending the events that we that we host physically have meant that we've had consistent growth. We're nearly at like 5,000 members at this point
Amazing.
in our Discord community, and that's all. Yeah, none of that's been like drag people in. I think also for us, like the community needs to be an active participating thing for the support to work, because yes, we're supporting them, but a lot of what comes from us is that you get to be part of this community and you get to work with people who are in a similar place, and that support comes from the community as much as it does from us. So there's no point us trying to bring in like 10,000 people a year, because yes, we could have 10,000 people sign up, but if they're not going to turn up to the events, if they're not going to be around in the Discord and they're not going to be connecting and talking and active, then it's just a vanity metric that doesn't do anything for anyone. And
Sure.
I've seen that with like other Discord communities where they've got really really big communities, like in the 50,000 range, but it slowly becomes more and more of a ghost town, because there's like your small super fan base who are still interacting with each other, but they've all got like their own little in jokes and stuff, and so that kind of gets hard to crack into. And then there's just a whole bunch of people who are either lurking in the wings and not participating, or they signed up and now like they've just forgotten that they're even in your Discord.
So, how do you convert sort of the interest, that initial interest from people that perhaps want to sort of become part of that community, into active participation and support for the UK games industry?
We do a lot of stuff where we invite people to take part. So people can volunteer to do stuff with GDL. Quite often when we host the larger scale events, we need a certain size crew of volunteers. So people get involved that way. We have the podcast has a rotating roster of hosts. So people can come in, they can be on the podcast for a bit. Typically, people join the podcast with the added benefit of knowing you're kind of putting yourself out there, and you're building up that I'm a voice in the space and I can be seen, and that kind of raising your profile. And then just generally, it's from when, in fact, yeah, also running workshops. That's basically every touch point that we have, and people can get involved with. People can
Yeah.
support it in some way. We've only just this year, this month, created a Ko-fi account, and we've started doing some merch, so that people can support us
Oh,
in
okay.
those kind of ways. But yeah, typically it just comes naturally from, if you attend, then you get involved. We active when we host the events, we actively go out there and speak to everyone, make sure everyone's happy and everyone's comfortable and respectful and stuff.
Fantastic. And obviously, like you've mentioned, you host major events. Would you like to sort of go into a bit more detail about some of those events and sort of what they look like and who they are aimed at, what the target sort of market is there for those events?
Yeah, I mean, typically they're kind of quite broadly open in terms of like who can or should attend. Like within the community itself, we have people who are hobbyists who like to just like tinker with making games, or with making art for games, or making music for games, or whatever the craft is. Then you've got people who take it a bit more seriously, like people who solo develop and make little things by themselves, and so they like to acquire all of these skills, and maybe they release their games on mobile platform or some other platform, but maybe aren't looking to do it as a business. And then you get the next level of people who do want to do it a bit more seriously, do want to try and make money out of it. And then you get the small indie teams, which is typically like a group of people who came together either through like networking meetups. There's quite a few people who come through from university or college groups.
Right.
And we run game jams, which are short stints. This weekend we're running one where you spend 3 days, you meet some strangers, you all get together, you figure out like who's an artist, who's a programmer, and you form a little team. And so some of those teams go on to, they make a game under a theme for the weekend, and some of those teams go either A, we worked really well together, let's try and make a game together, or they go, that was a cool idea, I think it could go further, let's see if we can develop that further. So there's quite a broad range of people and types of people in the community. And then you've got people who are looking to start a career in games, so they're looking for opportunities. In our Discord, we have a couple of dedicated job boards where jobs are posted for various job roles in games. So the community is quite broad in that respect, and the events are designed to cater to that whole community. Basically, our main event, GDLX, has this year it's a little bit bigger than previous years. So this year we have a career stage with talks about how you get into games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, best portfolio practices. And then we have what we call the fireside stage, which is open panel talks about certain topics in games. And we have like a panel of experts, and that's kind of open to the audience, so the audience can always ask their questions. That used to be like the main stage used to be a mix, but we found that everyone just loves fireside, and the second we made it fireside, everyone was like, "Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
right.
pure fireside stage,
Yeah.
amazing." And this year we've launched the new games stage, which is a stage specifically for the indie studios who are showcasing, and they can get up on stage and they can talk about problems that they've had developing their game, or production pipeline processes, or they can use it as a bit of a platform to talk about their game more generally. Yeah, so this year we have 3 stages. There's like open and available networking spaces across the event. You can sit down, chill out, and eat and talk to people. And then we also have the awards this year, and an industry after party, and that tends to be where a lot of the, like, I guess people say it's like it's where the real deals are made, but once you are in an after party, there's a much more relaxed kind of situation.
Yeah.
And if you're going to GDLX to try and work in a small indie studio and you're looking for those opportunities, it's kind of hard to have those conversations when they're showcasing, because they're showcasing their game, so they can talk to you a little bit, but they've got
Yeah.
one eye on, like, people want to sit down and get up and they need to talk to people who played the game. Whereas once you get to the after party, obviously it's a lot more relaxed and it's a lot easier to have those conversations. So yeah, we do quite a lot for the expo.
It sounds amazing. So, how many do you do a year, and sort of what's the numbers like for attendance?
So we've done a different number each year. So overall, I think last year the number was 55 events throughout the year,
Wow.
but that was both online and offline, and yeah, IRL, because we also host like side events. So we have Develop is like a big event that happens in our industry, Develop Brighton. And typically, the cool thing about Develop Brighton isn't just that you go down and there's an expo there. It's that there's lots of these little side events from all of the smaller entities, like
Right.
our studio. So yeah, we typically host things like that. And then yeah, like I said, we were hosting workshops and things. So from year to year, that number kind of goes up and down. But for the main big events, we typically do 4 or 5 of those a year.
Fantastic. Um, whereabouts do you do them? So do you move around, or are they always at the same venues?
Yeah, so they're normally in and around London. Last year we had like a really big problem with the venue. We were going to be a bit more central London, and then 2 months in for promoting the event, the venue had to pull out, and
Oh
we were
no,
left. Yeah, it was a real big heart attack moment,
I can.
where I had like, I think at that point I only had like weeks to kind of find a new venue and keep the whole thing alive. And I have a friend who works at UCA Farnham, and I messaged him. I didn't even message him to say like, "Hey, I need a venue." I just messaged him and I said, "I don't know. Would you guys be interested in like hosting GDLX at some point, sometime? Um,
Yeah.
working with us. I just wanted to see if he would be interested." And he was like, "Are you talking about the one that's happening like now?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah, let me have a couple of conversations." And he literally turned it around. His name's Andy, up at UCA Farnham, and yeah, he's been he was magic. He was a miracle. And so, because of part of that, we've decided that we actually we love the venue. We love working with them. They were so good to us that we're kind of staying there now.
Oh, brilliant! I
So
bet that was
so
such relief
GDLX,
for you as well.
yeah, year on year, like we've always had like cool event spaces and stuff for it. But it's always been, I have to go find a new venue, one that we can afford to. So the events we do, typically they like pay for themselves. It's not like,
Right.
if anyone has ever run an event, they know that it's not, unless you're like one of the big event creators. And typically they have people, they sublet their event services. So
Yeah.
if you're a small event person, I think it's the same for like wedding organizers. The overheads are big. You have to pay for your venue, you have to pay for this, that, and the other, and insurance and all sorts of things. So yeah, so we've got a partnership with UCA Farnham, and we're going to stay GDLX itself. That particular event will stay at UCA Farnham, and we continue to venue hunt for the other events that we do.
So that one that you've just been talking about, how many people roughly would you say attend one of those events?
That's been our most popular event. The first year that we did it, we only had 150 people. I say only, like now it's like that feels like it was a small number, but at the time I remember being like, oh my god, we got 150 people.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's kind of semi-stabilized at around 500 to 600 people attend, and it might be potentially higher this year. There's a lot of other factors involved. Like typically when we look at when and where we're hosting it, it always seems like that time is a safe space or a safe spot, and then you find out there's 2 other events that are happening that month or whatever, and you're like,
Right.
would have been good to have learned that earlier on.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to know, and in some cases, big things happen. Like last year, I think it was GDC or EGX, one of the other big events, planted themselves right next to where we had announced ours, and so we
Right.
did see slightly. Well, actually, I don't think we had slightly lower numbers, but it was like more effort on social media to make sure that we
Yeah.
actually reminded people, oh, we are still happening, and in amongst all the noise that's happening online for the other events.
And so people, I guess, you sell tickets to the events, and that's how you fund that. And where can people find out about the events, and sort of where do they find the information about Game Dev Local and sort of what's going on?
So we have our website, gamedevlocal.com. Yeah, typically you can find everything there, but you could also, we're on all of the normal social media platforms. We're on LinkedIn. We're actually not on Twitter. We left Twitter with the mass exodus of other indies that left
Yeah.
Twitter. So we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Blue Sky at the moment. And yeah, Eventbrite is pretty good at keeping people updated as to when our events are happening.
Brilliant, fantastic. And what would you say, finally, are your most exciting opportunities and events that are coming up in the next year or so, and sort of what are your plans going forwards?
So GDLX is happening on March 28th. That's the biggest thing that we're working on right now. I have plans for doing a GDLXmas, so we'll do one like similar, same format, but towards the end of the year. Typically, the games industry goes a bit quiet towards the end of the year, as most businesses do for Christmas and stuff. But
Yes.
we've noticed there's a bit of a space there where we could, tie into people's Christmas celebrations and still deliver, the same kind of value in terms of an event.
Is that a new thing then? You've not done it at that time before?
Yeah, I was going to do that last year, and then I just wasn't able to pull it all together. We had other problems going on with other events and stuff. So this year I focused on just doing GDLX, and then we'll look at doing GDLX once GDLX is over.
Right. So it'd be really interesting to see how, sort of what the uptake for that is and how well it goes. I really hope that works out really well for you. It's been really insightful speaking to you today, Stuart, and learning all about GDL and sort of how you've got to where you are. And it sounds like a really interesting platform for everybody who's got any interest whatsoever in gaming, from all its different sort of, whether, like you say, the game development, artistry, etc., growing as well. So it's been great speaking to you, and I wish you every success for the future.
Thank you very much. You too.